Well, hello there, folks, and a very warm welcome back to What's for Tea. It's lovely to see you again, and I hope that I find you very well. And for this week's archive recipe, we're doing gingerbread. It doesn't get more autumn winter than gingerbread, so I'm going to pass you over to me from a few years ago, and I will catch up with you at the end, and we can have a wee chat then. So, yeah, thanks for watching. But as usual, all of the ingredients will be in the description box underneath the video. So you want this nice and spicy and cinnamony. So there's cinnamon and ginger and all the usual suspects in here. And that's what I used there. But it is just wonderful. And see, when this is baking, the smell in the kitchen was absolutely crazy. My cake ended up quite chunky, but not overly chunky. So I would suggest if you're looking for a really high sort of chunky squares of cake, just use a smaller cake pan. Anything between an 8 or a 9-inch square is absolutely ideal. So I'm going to show you the pan that I'm using, and of course you'll need to line it. I've just used some grease-proof paper, but you can just use some butter, and then obviously flour if you want to use the flour and butter method. But I always like to line mine with paper just to make sure there's no problems at the end, which there weren't. So I'm going to be using my stand mix today with the balloon attachment, but you can of course use the paddle attachment if you prefer, or do it by hand. So the first thing we're going to do is cream the butter. Do this for a few minutes. It just loosens it up and gets it nice and soft. I'm using unsalted, but you can use salted if you prefer. Then once you're happy, you can pop in your sugar. I'm using some brown sugar and white, but again, use all white or all brown. The darker your sugar, you know, the darker your cake is going to be at the end. So if you use a dark brown sugar, you'll have a much darker cake. Mine's a sort of light brown. So once you've creamed those together, it should be looking something like this. Now we're going to add 2 medium eggs, one at a time. Pop one in, and once it's nicely mixed through, you can pop your other one in. Now don't worry if it's looking curdled at this stage, or you think it looks a bit funky, because sometimes it can look a bit like that, but that's perfectly normal, so don't worry about it. And once your eggs are nicely incorporated, it should be looking something like this. Now I'm just going to scrape down the bowl, which you will have to do a couple of times during this recipe because everything just flies off to the sides and sticks to the sides. We're now going to add in the treacle or molasses and just give it a good mix together to make sure it's well combined, and it'll be this lovely moussey texture. Now we're going to move on to the dry ingredients. So your plain flour, your baking powder and salt, and then your spices. You just want to mix all of these together in the one bowl. I'm just using a fork, but use whatever you like. We're just going to add this in 2 or 3 stages to your mixture. Mix in. To this we're going to add some milk. So add your milk in 2 stages so that you're not throwing it all in at the one time. And again, just give it a good mix in between stages until all of your milk and all of your flour mixture is in. Give it one final whisk just to make sure everything is together. Now, like I said, I'm using the balloon whisk. I prefer the balloon whisk for these sort of looser cake batters, but you can, of course, use the paddle if you prefer, like I said. All I have to do now is dump this into our cake tin, and look how lovely and velvety and ribbony that is. It's just lovely. Smooth it over the top with your spatula, and do give your tin a good couple of bangs or taps to get some of those air bubbles released. And then all I have to do is pop it into the oven between 30 and 40 minutes. And this was mine here, just slightly cooled down from the tin. And I'm going to flip mine over because I think it's just prettier on the other side, you know, if you've got any cracks or anything. Plus it makes it nicer to cut. So once it's nice and cool, you just want to cut this into whatever size squares you like. And I've also popped some plain icing on the top of this. I just put mine into a piping bag. My icing was nice and thick. And if your cake is cold, you know, it will set in these lovely lines. So do make sure your cake is nice and cool, you know, if you're going to ice it this way. But you can, of course, just put your icing all over the top if you prefer. And this was mine here. And as you can see, it's just falling apart because it's so soft and delicate. I'm going to pick the end bit up, and a bit more success picking that one up. As you can see, they are fairly chunky, but if you want a chunkier cake, just use a smaller tin, I would recommend an 8 by 8 inch because mine was 9 by 9 inches. And that was
So yeah, that was
and we're just gonna
absolutely
have this, or
delicious.
we
And as
did
you can see
have
there,
this later
just
on after our
perfect
tea
with
with some
custard. And I
lovely
can
warm.
still remember how that tasted. I think that was probably the best that I've ever made. So well worth doing. And a huge thank you as usual to the supporters of the channel over on my Patreon page and to the channel members here on YouTube. For you all for watching, leaving your lovely comments, those that share the videos or give the videos a thumbs up, those that have left me a super thanks donation or bought me a coffee using the Buy Me a Coffee link. And I will catch up with you during the week. So take care and bye for now. Bye now.